Morning and welcome. My name is Kuvu, and I'm the director of the Seattle Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs. I'm also a naturalized citizen. We are gathered here today, community members and elected officials, to say no to Trump's attempts to institute a wealth test for immigrants applying for U.S. citizenship. We'd like to offer a special thanks to Asian Counseling and Referral Service and One America for organizing us today. It is my privilege to introduce our first speaker, a longtime immigrant rights advocate and Washington's U.S. representative for the 7th District, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal.
Thank you so much, Ku, for all the work you do here at the city. And it is a real pleasure to be here with my long-term friends and fighters for immigrant rights. I want to thank El Centro, ACRS, and One America, and the City of Seattle. These groups have been on the front lines of fighting for justice for immigrants, and really, you all are my heroes and sheroes of the movement, so thank you. Immigrant rights work has been my life's work, as you all know, and I'm so proud that I have the honor of representing the 7th Congressional District of Washington in the United States Congress, and so proud to be one of only 14 members of Congress out of 535 who is actually naturalized myself, naturalized U.S. citizen. So I have the honor of serving as the vice chair on the Immigration Subcommittee of the Judiciary Committee, and we have worked very hard to pass thoughtful and smart reforms and real solutions through the committee and off the House floor, and that includes the most progressive and expansive Dream and Promise Act ever passed. I don't need to tell anyone that this administration has tied its wagon to an immigration strategy that is defined by its cruelty, its xenophobia, its racism. Much of that strategy driven by a white nationalist within the administration named Stephen Miller. From ripping children from their parents, to locking up refugees and asylees in prisons, to cruel new standards calling immigrants public charges, and now to dropping refugee admissions to zero, Trump's actions are shameful, destructive, and frankly, soulless. Now we see once again that this administration's goal is to stop all immigration to this country, to rip away any processes that actually do allow people to enter the country legally, and then to blame immigrants for all of the woes of a country that has been rigged only for the wealthiest few. The administration's new proposal to create an invisible wall by increasing the fees to apply for and maintain legal status and become citizens to levels that will make it impossible for too many immigrants to actually apply to legalize. Application fees for immigrants who want to secure legal status in the U.S. are already prohibitively high. These proposed fee increases from the Trump administration include raising the naturalization application fee by 83% to $1,170 per person, and for green card applications from $1,220 to $2,195 per person. Also includes eliminating fee waivers, which are really essential for those who face financial hardship to actually be able to apply. Raising the rates for DACA applicants and charging asylum fees for the first time in our history. These fee hikes are just egregious, and they're another attempt to restrict and discourage even legal immigration. We will fight these fees and the administration's zero humanity immigration policies. Last week, I was proud to lead a letter signed by more than 80 of my colleagues in the House of Representatives calling on these agencies to abandon these plans. And I recently introduced with my colleagues Grace Meng from New York and Chuy Garcia from Illinois, and the National Partnership for New Americans, which includes our very own One America, a critical piece of legislation known as the New Deal for New Americans. This New Deal would dramatically change the way that we treat our immigrants and refugees. It would ease many burdens that immigrants and refugees face, such as processing backlogs and application fees. It would create and invest in support systems for refugee inclusion in states and communities, including English language instruction and workforce development programs. And I want to thank the mayor of our great city, Mayor Durkan, for endorsing that legislation and really being behind it all the way. Here's the thing. America has a very checkered history with racist immigration policies through time. But what we have found over and over again is that America needs immigrants. We are better for the immigrants that have come here and have helped to build this country with skills and innovation and resilience, with hard work and perseverance, with an identity that is so tied to what actually makes America great. So we will do our best as a nation when we do the most to actually integrate and support immigrants who make this their new home. And I want to thank the advocates who have been on the front lines of a very, very difficult time in our crisis. And I want to tell you and remind you that immigrants have always won in the end, and we will again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Next, it is my distinct honor to introduce Mayor Jenny Durkan. Under her leadership, the City of Seattle leads the nation as a welcoming city for immigrants and refugees.
Thank you so much, Ku, and thank you, Congresswoman Jayapal, for not just your work in Congress, but all the work you've done up to that point to make us a better city. I want to thank all the advocates behind me, but more important, I want to thank the communities they represent for being in Seattle, for continuing to raise your voices, and for trusting us to protect you. We cannot forget what the message is on the Statue of Liberty. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. This president wants to erase that message, and instead of give me your tired and your poor, give me your rich, pay to play. That is not who America is. We reject it. It is wrong. As Congresswoman Jayapal showed, he has had a relentless policy since he came into office to target our immigrant and refugee communities. I was honored to be with some of the people behind me, our governor and others, on the very first day that the Muslim ban tried to go in effect, when this president put in effect the Muslim ban. We fought against it, we won. But he was not satisfied to stop with that. You see right now more and more ICE raids and blaming immigrants and refugees for their failures. You see a public charge, which really means we are not going to let cities and states help the people that need help the most, because it might jeopardize their ability to become fully American citizens. The separation of families at the border continues. As many of you know, I was able to go down there with a group of mayors, a bipartisan group of mayors, to reject that policy as completely contradictory to what America stands for. But yet it continues and increases. That is not who America is. We need to be better. He continues to ramp up his efforts to destroy DACA, taking away the hope and promise for so many youth who were here contributing. He's trying to eliminate the fee waiver process. These are just a selection of his horrifying acts of what he is doing. And I stand with Congresswoman Jayapal and everyone behind me to say, immigrants and refugees are welcome in Seattle. We are better because of you. Our country is better. We have succeeded as a city and a state because we know that we are better by having more diversity and people coming from all over this world. The other thing we have to say is our immigrants and refugees have always been that for our country. Unless you are a person of Native American heritage, you or your ancestors came to America from somewhere else, sometimes under horrifying circumstances, like the slave trade, sometimes searching for hope. And when people come searching for hope, the last thing we should do is we're going to charge a price of admissions for hope. That is not America. We will continue to work against and fight another cruel effort by this president. And let me repeat that. He wants to repeat something that Congressman Jayapal, you know, people who are seeking asylum, the journeys they travel with their children and their families, they are escaping some of the most horrific and dangerous situations there are. And yet we want to say, no, you can't come here unless you can pay. That is wrong. It stands against everything that we stand for as a country, and it stands against everything we stand for as a city. We will not stand for that and allow for that. We will continue everything we're doing to support our immigrant and refugee communities. And make no mistake about it, it is a steady drumbeat Because in the end, they not only want to build a wall, a real wall, but a psychological wall and a financial wall. They want to intimidate and instill fear. They want the census not to reflect the number of people who are here so that those people's voices cannot be heard. We will not stand for that intimidation. We will do everything we can to empower communities so they can lessen that fear. And we will promise to be with the people behind us, but more importantly, for the communities that they represent. For the peoples whose voices are not heard enough, we will hear your voices. For the people who are fleeing danger and fear, we want to be that safe haven for you. And we will not charge people a price of admission. There is not a pay to play in America. We accept people at our borders for a reason. It has made us stronger, it has made us better, and it is the heart and soul of our country. We will continue that fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Our next speaker is El Centro de la Raza Executive Director, Estela Ortega.
Thank you, Vu. In defense of our community, we stand in opposition to the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services proposed changes to increase fees for immigration services. Once again, the Trump administration is trying to use every process at its disposal to limit legal immigration and even U.S. citizenship. His administration is working persistently to undermine the opportunity for immigrants to support their families and become citizens. The proposed fee schedule has a disproportionate effect on low-income residents, charging a fee for asylum and increasing fees for DACA renewals, a green card, and citizenship would price out low-income immigrants and their families. Families would be forced to make the painful choice between providing the basic needs and pursuing an immigration benefit. Only the wealthy could easily access immigration benefits. It is immoral that the Trump administration wants to make people fleeing persecution in their home countries to pay a fee for something that has been free, the right to apply for asylum in the United States. It may not seem like much, however, refugees are not able to work until after they have asylum status, and most have fled their home countries with just the clothes on their backs. Charging a fee would create a major barrier for some of the poorest and most vulnerable in our hemisphere. The renewal for DACA has increased by 55% to $765. Most DACA requesters are young people who already struggle to afford the existing DACA fee, and many have had to borrow that fee. The extra increase would present a significant barrier. The proposed fee for naturalization is excessive and will deny long-time residents who are deeply established in their communities an opportunity to become citizens. If these rules are put in place, it will delay, extend the time low-income and working-class immigrants will apply for naturalization. The chance to become citizens limits their participation in civic democratic processes, voting, and jury service. Delaying citizenship to potential new voters is an effective way to suppress the vote. We are asking concerned residents of our welcoming city of Seattle, King County, and Washington State to stand with us by submitting comments rejecting the proposed fee increases. Please request that the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services withdraw all provisions that make immigration benefits less accessible to low-income and other vulnerable immigrants. You have until December 16th to provide comment. Please visit El Centro de la Raza's website, and there will be a link for you to provide your comments. Thank you.
I'd like to now introduce Asian Counseling and Referral Service Executive Director, Michael Byun.
So we are here today with support from our mayor and our Congresswoman Jayapal to firmly denounce this administration's plan to eliminate the fee waiver and to dramatically increase the cost for naturalization. ACRS is the largest naturalization service provider in Washington state, helping over 700 people apply for citizenship each year. Through our work, we see from the front lines the potential adverse impact on our communities. This plan will hurt and harm our older immigrant adults, our immigrants with disabilities, and our lower income immigrants, preventing or making it difficult for them to become citizens. This plan is part of a long line of anti-immigrant actions by this administration that includes the Muslim ban, the reduction in the number of refugees allowed to seek safe haven in the U.S. from violence and war, the separation of our families at the borders, the threat to penalize immigrants as a public charge for accessing health, housing, and other essential benefits, and the attempt to add the citizenship question to the 2020 census to instill fear into our immigrant communities. These are the reasons why we need your support by submitting your comments through the Federal Register and to share how these rules will harm our community and how they run counter to our values. We also need you to get the word out to your friends, family, and colleagues, to ask them to submit comments as well. The more comments that we can submit, the greater chance that we have to change the course of this plan. Over the next few weeks, ACRS, along with El Centro de la Raza and other organizations, have organized a platform for you to submit comments. Again, the important date is December 16th. For additional information about how you can submit comments at ACRS's website, visit us at www.acrs.org. Thank you so much.
The next speaker is Elfnesh Chifo, representing community-based organization Horn of Africa Services, which serves Seattle's diverse East African communities.
Thank you. Thank you so much, mayors and state congresswomen. So let me tell you about myself. I've been moved here to the United States 7 years ago. As a recent immigrant to the US, I got my citizenship about 1.5 years ago. Since then, I feel I am at home. Before that, I never feel that, because I know that I have no representation. Then let's tell you the communities that we represent at Horn of African Services. The community that we represent is the community that comes from harsh environment. As mostly from East Africa, the region where it is known for civil conflict and civil wars. Helping these communities are trying to get a better place to live, trying to get the place where their voice can be heard. Let me give you the statistics from the Horn of Africa from this year. We helped 80 people to fill the citizenship application. Out of those 80 people, 50 people use the application fee waiver because they qualify for that waiver according to the law. Let's say from that, if we have to remove the application fee waiver, we not get those 50 people to get a citizenship, which means we're not gonna get 50 votes in the coming years, which means they are suppressed and they are continue in that situation where they escaped from their original land. Let's also tell you that most of our communities work low-income jobs where they have to work 2-3 works, which means it took them a long to save even the previous fee, which is $640 or $725 itself. Our community has mostly have families. They are not alone. So it is really hard for them to save it. So even living for 5 years, saving that application fee is really hard for the communities that we support. Therefore, increasing the application fee or removing the waiver will lower our applicants. I also need to mention that in the United States, there is no place the immigrants are not involved with, from the military to NASA, from the science, from the health sectors, everywhere also, as well as in administration. As we hear our Congresswoman say, she's an immigrant herself, or she got. Therefore, suppressing the immigrants is not to become a citizenship in a new way, whether it is removing the application fee waiver or increasing the application fee, is the other or the new norm where we are going to suppress the vote of the minorities or low-income families. Therefore, our community stand with our mayor and with our Congresswoman to fight that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elfnesh. The next speaker is Johanna Martinez, who is an immigration attorney with the West African Community Council.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to commend the leadership of the City of Seattle and for King County for really supporting the immigrant communities and the work that we do. On behalf of the West African Community Council, I am here as an immigration attorney and as a representative of all the immigrants that we have served and helped over the course of the past few years. There is a saying out there that the way we treat our most vulnerable is the true measure of our humanity. How we treat the poor, the elderly, and the sick reflects a society that is strong enough to take care of its weakest and most vulnerable applicants. These new policy changes, increases in fees up to 83%, creates a system where those who cannot afford the $1,000 plus fee are unable to apply for naturalization to become a citizen. Fee waivers for those in need are getting increasingly more difficult to get, and the reduced fee option is being done away with. These drastic changes are being enacted in a manner that is inconsistent with the public comment period that we use as a tool in our democracy to ensure that our voices are being considered. This policy keeps those who are struggling, it keeps them down and provides more opportunity for those with more money and wealth. We expect better from our government. We expect transparency and policies that showcase our humanity and not just our prejudices. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last speaker is Hamdi, Mohamed, Immigrant and Refugee Policy Advisor for the King County Office of Equity and Social Justice.
Thank you to everyone who helped organize this event. Thank you, Mayor Denny Durkan and Congresswoman Jayapal for being here with us. As you all may know, King County is home to the largest immigrant and refugee population in Washington, and Washington State is the second largest state that is tasked to resettling refugees. Welcoming immigrants, refugees, and asylum seekers is not only a fundamental value and character of King County, it is essential to our economic and social development. Let me be clear today. These harsh changes to existing immigration rules and policies are driven by hate and not by thoughtful economic strategies. The new proposed fee hikes are just another part of the invisible wall which the Trump administration is building to block even legal immigration, as our Congresswoman has said. The citizenship fee hike will not only make the process of naturalization expensive, it will also likely make the goal an impossible one for many King County residents. Look, I was 3 years old when I came to this country as a refugee. I remember when my mom was applying for naturalization. She was working 2 jobs as a single mother and was barely making ends meet. We studied the 100 civics questions that's asked during the naturalization interview day and night. At that time, if USCIS had increased the application fee and or eliminated the fee waiver for naturalization, my own mother would not have been naturalized. Just last week, a hardworking family shared their stories with me about the difficulties they faced to save up for the $540 green card application renewal, let alone the $765 fee for naturalization. And with these new proposals, those numbers are, as you guys heard, are expected to increase. These fee hikes alone, along with the fee waiver wealth tests have the potential of blocking thousands of people from accessing citizenship, including people like my mother and countless other residents of King County. Perhaps the most egregious addition into these fee hike proposals are the fees imposed upon asylum seekers, who are one of the world's most vulnerable populations, as you guys have heard. We know that when immigration systems work for immigrants, the immigration system works for everybody. Immigrants contribute to the economy. When immigrants are able to access work permits, green cards, and eventually citizenship, they are free to work, stimulate the economy, and build businesses without fear. So in closing, I want to say thank you to Congresswoman Jayapal and all of our congressional members who are fighting the Trump administration day in and day out. Thank you, Congresswoman Jayapal, as one of my mentors, for all the work that you're doing in leading the way in the fight for immigration justice. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Hamdi. This concludes our press conference. I'm sorry, actually it does not. It concludes our speakers for today. We'd like to now open it up for questions. Crystal clear. Go. Would you state your name?
Sure, Lily Fowler with Crosscut. So I've got a couple questions. Is the fee waiver proposal that the city just filed a lawsuit about, does that look like it's going through on December 2nd? And let's start there.
It is in progress at the moment, and we have received the first decision, which is we requested a preliminary injunction, and that decision was not granted. And so we are working towards continuing that case. As it stands now, December 9th will be the effective date for the some of the initial changes related to that case.
But it's two separate proposals.
That's right. That's right. And that case is being reviewed by our attorneys right now in light of this new fee schedule change that the Trump administration, because that was proposed after we had submitted our initial documents to the court.
And is a lawsuit from the city possible with this newest proposal?
Yeah, when we were working that out, unfortunately, I'm not able to comment about the specifics of the case publicly because many of those details are in progress.
I may be getting to repeat yourself here, but are you saying that the city is considering legal action with regard to this proposed fee?
Yes, and it's possible that the two can be related, and the attorneys are reviewing that right now.
Yeah, and let me just add one thing to that. So you heard a lot of urging today from the people here to have public comment. Until the rule is finalized, obviously you can't sue. Public comment is critical. The voices need to be heard. So we provided that information, the organizations behind us have, and I just want to thank Koo for all the work that she's done. This Office of Immigration Affairs has been working triple time under this administration. We are working at every level in our city, with the county, with our congressional delegation to really make us fair. And I just want to iterate again is there is such a conflation of issues here because it is all anti-immigrant. And it is an attempt to divide people and to dehumanize them. We have an administration that is trying to label people as illegal when there is no person who is illegal. And with these attempts, they are literally trying to take away pathways that have existed throughout our history for people to become citizens. And I know many of you were at the Seattle Center on July 4th. Every year we have a naturalization and citizenship ceremony. To look out into that crowd and see the people who have staked their right to the American dream, holding the American flag from every country across this world. To try to stop that is inhumane and it's wrong, and everyone's voices need to be heard. This rule should not stand. We will continue to fight on every other level against these inhumane policies. And it will be through lawsuits, it will be through having our voices heard, and it will be primarily by supporting our immigrant and refugee communities here and the community-based organizations that are the first front lines of helping them. Thank you.
I noticed a significant
significant amount in the Horn of Africa numbers from 80 applied to 50 took advantage of the waiver and qualified for the waiver. Do we have some other numbers for the county overall in terms of how many people applied?
Yeah, I can speak for the city of Seattle, and which includes some services for King County residents, and I'll turn it over to Hamdi if she would like to provide any information about King County. Most of the people who use the city's naturalization services are eligible for the fee waiver. And I would say that probably 2/3, when you combine the population that we serve through our naturalization programs, and that's about 1,000, and a little more than 1,000 a year. And so this service really helps to support very low-income people. And we're not talking about just low income. We're talking about people who, without the fee waiver, they would not be eligible to apply or able to apply. And so I think that moving forward, it will require us, if these proposals become the law, then we'll have to look at how we serve these low-income communities. Hamdi, did you want to have anything to say for King County?
I don't have the exact number, but a lot of the organizations that the county provides grants and supports to help hundreds of people, and I would imagine those numbers are in the thousands, but if I can, I'm happy to get you an exact number.
All those people that would want to rely or would need to rely on the waivers, if this goes through, then what?
If it goes through, then they don't have that option, and so we are going to have to organize, and a lot of the folks who are here are going to have to figure out other options for people, but we are hoping to not get to that point, and so the public comment period is so important that, you know, every organization as individuals, that we submit those comments, and the county will be doing that as well.
The fact that all of the agencies are hearing from people that are hearing about this, that are concerned, what do I do? I mean, can you give me a sense for the feedback?
Yeah, like I said in my talking points, people are already reaching out and talking, you know, sharing concerns about the amount that they already pay for and how expensive these fees are to begin with. And so I would imagine a lot of the organizations are hearing the same things. Michael, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, so just another example, at our organization at Asian Counseling and Referral Service, 64% of those who we work with qualify and apply for the fee waiver. And I think the most important thing, again, the mayor and the Congresswoman had shared, this is a very pernicious effort by this administration to systematically dismantle our immigration system, denying people the opportunity to call this country home.
I wanted to add a couple of things. One, the reason that it particularly affects Washington State and the reason you're hearing these big numbers is because we are one of the top 10 refugee resettlement states in the country. We're actually within the top 3 in terms of secondary migration of refugees. So we have a number of people who are coming from conditions that you heard described by our excellent speakers, where they are literally escaping war, persecution, all kinds of terrible situations, and they're coming with literally nothing in their pockets because they weren't able to take any of those things. They've spent such a long time trying to get to the United States. So our population of refugees and asylees is higher than some other states. I want to be clear that it affects everybody, but we have a particular interest in this. Second thing about the comment period, one of the things that the administration did is they actually cut the typical comment period from 60 days to 32 days. So this is absolutely ridiculous. Why not have the same public comment period that we have for other things? So again, the calls for people to submit comments is very, very important. And then the last thing is, what happens when people don't get citizenship? I was actually here for 17 years without citizenship. I went through a whole host of visas, alphabet soup of visas, before I finally got my citizenship in 2000. What happens is, people do not see their lives as definitively tied to this country. That means they make different economic decisions about starting businesses, investing in homes, in cars, all of those things, but also they don't have the same opportunities. It is harder for somebody who does not have citizenship to get a job. It is harder for somebody who does not have citizenship to get health services. We have blocked in the United States of America, and I have a bill for this. I'm feeling like Elizabeth Warren. I got a plan for this. I've got the HEAL Act, which I've introduced, that says that you don't have to wait 5 years after becoming a legal permanent resident to be eligible for health care in this country. We have different standards, unfortunately, that have developed over the last 15 years for what it means to be a legal permanent resident or on a tourist visa versus being a citizen. So it affects everything. And by the way, it also affects how much money the state takes in for its individuals to be covered under certain programs. So if you're a citizen, the state gets additional dollars to support that. So there are all kinds of things, but at the core of this is really what I see every day with these policies, which is the deep hurt and pain of a message that says, we don't think that you are good enough for this country if you don't earn a certain amount, if you don't look a certain way, or if you just come from another place, you have a different religion, you have, other cultures that have been brought. And you look around the city of Seattle, and I want to thank Ku as well for doing such a phenomenal job of taking what was an idea when we first established the Office for Immigrant and Refugee Affairs and the mayor for making this a reality. But you look around the city of Seattle and you find me one business that could survive without the work and the contributions of immigrants. It does not exist. So the idea that this administration wants to keep saying, well, there's no legal, these people are illegal or they haven't come in the right way, but then they're taking away all of the opportunities that we have established, and we need more. That's why we're working for immigration reform at the federal level. But this is just a hypocrisy, it is outrageous, and it will hurt our country. Thank you.
I saw a hand over here. Are there more questions?
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.